Well, here we. Oh, jeez. I got crap all over my desk from another project I'm working on here. So, sorry. How about if I go ahead and move some of this out the way? All right. What I'm taking a look at today is this little guy. Almost said this little guy right here, but I'm definitely not Nick Shabazz. All right. This is a Cold Steel Lucky One. I got kind of interested in this when I was picking up some uh, slip joints, and especially with Cold Steel's future that was kind of up in the air. It, I think, still probably is a little bit, but hey, we'll see. Um, I wanted to get a hold of this guy, so I did pick one up. A couple of places did have kind of those Cold Steel panic sales, so I got it for a little cheaper than it usually probably goes for. And this thing is a bit smaller, or at least thinner than I was originally expecting. This guy is, yeah, it's got a half stop on there, so certainly probably appreciate that. I certainly like them a lot more than cam stops, but yeah, very, very, very thin, like less than 0.3 of an inch. And this guy has a pocket clip on him too, and it's a very odd shape, and it works fantastically. So yeah, you got basically the nail nick over here at the end point, which works all right. I generally like a matchstick pull just a little bit better, but with how deep in here the blade goes, this works out all right. You can also see this doesn't exactly have the most neutral handle, where it definitely has some scallops for your hand to go. And they work quite well for those 3 fingers that you got there. Yeah, and that pocket clip, it just seems to melt right in there. Where I don't even notice it at all when it's in my hand trying to, use it and cut with it and everything. So that's pretty fantastic. What's interesting with these guys is they're made in Italy. I have no idea who makes them for Cold Steel. They don't really give that information. I know Lion Steel works with a lot of different companies, so that's my personal guess. But hey, I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. This is in CPM S35VN, which is actually a little interesting to me. If you think like, well, it's made in Italy, I would have assumed that it would use a bowler steel because, well, it's fairly close by. Whether they wanted to go super high end and do M390, or they could do N690, if they wanted to get a little bit less, edge retention or whatnot. But yeah, they went with an American steel for it, which is interesting. I know Cold Steel does a lot of their blades in S35VN now, especially after they couldn't get a hold of enough CTS XHP that they were using for a bit. So there's that. Next up, what I want to talk about is the carbon fiber scales on this guy. You can certainly see, it's got a little bit of marring going on there by the pivot. That kind of came that way, but that doesn't really bother me so much. There's no voids or anything in there. It's very, very high quality carbon fiber. One thing that it's probably kind of divisive, and you can certainly see it with the light. It's very, very, very shiny. Oh, there's another. That wasn't even a mar. That was something stuck to it. Okay. But yeah, it's very, very highly polished on the outside here, which certainly makes for all those reflective bits of the carbon fiber weave pattern extra visible. But because of that, it is fairly slippery. If they just kept it just a little bit rougher, it would still look just as nice. Here's one that has a bit more texture on it that's wonderful, that still has a lot of, those dancing light patterns and whatnot. This is another video I'm going to be shooting real soon here. That's why it's kind of sitting beside me. But, yeah. All right, next up, I suppose I should actually take a look at the blade length on this. It's, yeah, because of the way this roller is, it's basically like 2¼ inches. It's going to look, or 2⅓. It's just shy of 2½ but you do have to back it up a little bit because of that. I actually want to kind of shave that off so I can just slam knives right up against it. I shall do that at some point here. Probably with my my Dremel tool. It usually has Scotch-Brite wheels on it, but I have cut-off wheels and a whole bunch of other stuff. So yeah, it's got a jeez. It's got a decently long blade on there. Something that I actually kind of appreciate on this is the fact that it's got basically like what I would call a saber grind on there. So it's not a full flat grind. It actually does make it a little bit easier to put like the nail neck and have a little bit extra for extra shelf when you put one of those in there for pulling them open. But it also helps to actually clamp it if you're going to use any of those clamp-based systems like the KME, the Lansky system, the Worksharp Precision Edge, any of that. And I have actually put a really nice edge on here from the Worksharp. It's I actually do feel just a little slightest bit of resistance, so I would probably want to strap that up if I was concerned with having a laser beam. But yeah, it's very sharp. Next up, this thing is definitely a featherweight. Like, this thing weighs virtually nothing. Let's see. What do you have, scale? Alright, so yeah, we're rocking under an ounce. Basically, there you go. Now you can see the decimal on there. That helps a little bit. So, yeah, 22½ grams. So, this thing will very much disappear in your pocket, which is super cool. At least I think it is. You do have the ability to carry it with the pocket clip. You're going to have just a little bit that might stick out of whatever that you put that in. For me, with the small size of the clip and everything, I would probably put it in my front shirt pocket, but I almost always have that on because I wear polo shirts most of the time. They make them longer than most t-shirts, and with me being just a little bit overweight, yeah, just a little bit, as well as the fact that my torso is much longer than the normal ratio of people, then yeah, that gives me extra length for trying to tuck my shirt in so I don't have to expose that ass crack to everybody in sight. So yeah, but the nice thing about it is usually have a front shirt pocket on there. I usually keep my phone in it, but you can certainly keep this along with a pen if you want to get all up in an EDC kind of thing. Heck, you could probably also include a little tiny flashlight in there too. Something like that, guy. Yeah. Pretty cute. So, the next thing up that I kind of want to talk about, well, one last thing about the handle scales here is they are very strong. This handle feels very durable. Like, you're not going to accidentally squeeze it. It's got almost no flex unless you are really forcing it. So great. It's a nice virtue of carbon fiber. They don't have a liner on here. Cold Steel does that on quite a bit of their stuff. Even like the gigantic Frenzy that's like a 5.5 or 6 inch blade also doesn't have liners. However, this does have like an itty bitty little pivot to them, and the blade thickness on this thing. Let me get to millimeters here. Is it's basically like 1.5 millimeters going on there. So yeah, very, very thin. Makes that very slicey. But this pivot point just doesn't... This isn't a hard use knife. Let's put it that way. If you're just cutting down in straight lines sort of thing, that's perfectly fine. If you get this thing bound and you try to wiggle it at all, you're going to have a bad time with this thing. So, this isn't like a perfect replacement for like a Buck 110 ranch knife kind of thing. This is a much more, I don't want to say civilized or refined or anything like that, but much more like a white collar sort of knife. Opening letters, breaking down boxes, all your sort of, office and probably around the house kind of things. And this guy will work fantastically. You just don't want to really mistreat that by putting, lateral pressure on them. It's not like it's loose or anything like that, but, it's a fairly thin stock blade on there. So there you go. Next up, the lockback on here and the fit and finish is quite nice. Obviously the lockback on it isn't going to be the same steel, but you can see it's basically the blade stock is ever so slightly thinner than the lock bar. And I'm perfectly fine with that, and actually, make sure that the action and the pivot is fine, and you're not having any binding issues with the scales or anything like that. But I really do like this thing. It's probably still not my favorite slip joint that I have, but as far as probably the lightest, I think this one probably takes the cake. I suppose, this one's a little bit dirty, but I think so far this is probably my favorite slip joint that I've had. This is a Tucson TS 123, if I remember right. But yeah, little copper inlays in there and the titanium. It also has a pocket clip, M390 blade on it. But and this one, I've heard some people have ridiculously hard pulls on theirs, but this one is perfectly suited. So anyway, this guy is great for just, keeping around, blah, blah, blah. If you would like, and this would probably be the way that I would carry it, is actually remove the clip and keep it down in your pocket. You can have it rumble around with your keys, because, carbon fiber is pretty durable. Not the most durable thing in the world, but fairly durable. And, if you're actually going to use it, then, hey, that's cool. Something that I was actually thinking about after I got this thing was they also make, or they did, I'm honestly not sure if these things were discontinued or not. I don't think so, but it's possible. But they also had made a one called the Lucky 2. And it was basically a two-blade knife like this that also had it was basically about the same blade shape on the other side, but it was fully serrated. Seems kind of neat. Kind of reminds me of, I know Spyderco certainly wasn't the first one to do it. It's a traditional pattern, but their dyad folder had two blades that would fold out separately like that. And the idiots like me who used to work retail cutlery would like to open up both of those and then, pretend it's a bat lift and you got both blades coming out each side. Good stuff. That's what happens when you're, late teens and whatnot. And you're working in a store with a whole bunch of sharp objects and you like those sharp objects. All right. Well, I guess the next thing that I will probably want to talk about with this thing is the price on them. Now, obviously, I usually look for a bargain when I'm looking for knives. And certainly this guy does have a decent blade steel in there, being S35 VN. And hey, Cold Steel is pretty well known for their heat treat. That being said, this is made from them from an Italian factory. It's not their standard Taiwan factory. So, there's that. It's S35 VN. It's decent middle of the road powder metallurgy steel. What I will say is that this guy, I think when it was on sale, was around 50 or 55. And I think for me, that's probably just a little too expensive for exactly what it is. Like, it's a slip joint, yes. You have fairly thin blade stock at that 1.5 millimeter. And then, you got that 2¼ inch blade on there. And carbon fiber is certainly coming down in price. That makes me kind of regret that I spent quite that much on them. I don't regret having the knife at all. But I do think that for this particular thing and the usage, bringing the price down a little bit would probably help out a little bit. But, I mean, also, more often than not, if I'm getting slip joints there, sorry for the camera wiggle, if I'm getting slip joints, they're from Tucson, and obviously I'm generally getting those at quite nice prices for what they are. This guy, he is an M390. The reason I have him here is actually there's a little bit of a roll going on at the front here. I've been using this for basically my mail opening knife for several months. So, I brought him down here to kind of fix that up a little bit. Because, it's just basically at the tip. Down here it's still super nice and sexy sharp. So, I might be a little bit of a slip joint snob, I guess, when it comes down to that. Sadly enough, that's not really a slip joint, but virtually all of these are. And we got a whole bunch of them from Tucson because a lot of their designs interest me. And some of them have some features that I'm not super crazy about, like this one from Ho Yudong, which, Jesus goddamn Christ, that is way too thick for a slip joint. Like, yes, it's going to be fairly strong. I did actually anodize this thing a little bronzy. So that's why it probably looks a little bit different than the rest of them there. But, So I do have quite a horde of slip joints. And I am certainly interested when people or companies come out with different ones, especially companies like Cold Steel. That's not their normal MO. This one is actually, as most things with Cold Steel these days, kind of collaborated by Lem Thompson and Andrew Demko. So they both kind of had a hand in there on it. So that's nice, at least, having well-known designers. That's always a good selling point. And I certainly do like slip joints that are kind of a little bit more upscale as far as the steel is concerned. Buck does an okay job with their 420HC, but I'm only really looking to pay like 420HC kind of prices for those. And some of the other manufacturers, Case comes to mind. They are far more expensive than the knives perform at or have the fit and finish of. I'm just not a super huge fan of them anymore. And this is, obviously I have a couple of them here, but this is also from speaking with retail experience with dealing with many, many different models. Their Peanut, Congress, Trappers, Stockman. That's the 3-blade one. And just a whole bunch of different ones. Like the handles are fairly neat and everything. They're jig boned and whatnot. But yeah, the blades don't really hold up as well as they should have. Both their SS stainless steel, which is probably 420 or 428C, and their CV or chrome vanadium doesn't actually fare all that much better. So I'm just not a huge fan of them. That and a lot of their actions aren't super great out of the factory. Like, hey, I'm all for U.S. manufacturing and everything, but if we're going to do that, we need to have that be part of our marketing. Is the fact that we do care a lot more about the manufacturing and stuff like that. And many of the U.S. factories do. But yeah, Case just kind of got a little big for their own britches, and they've just decided that their quality is just going to slip on down so that they can keep their yields high and everything. And yeah, I'm just not a fan anymore. Well, I didn't expect to have a little mini rant on Case, but here we are. So yeah, I don't really have a whole lot more to say about this guy, except for it's really neat, light use knife and very high end materials. That also has a pocket clip, which isn't super seen on a lot of single blade, well, or slip joints in general. So yeah, it's got a lot of neat features and everything for it. Very comfortable in the hand, even for myself that has quite the large hands. It's a 3-finger grip. But yeah, I do love it quite a bit. I just wish it was probably just a little bit cheaper. Like if they could drop that standard price down like another $10, and or maybe switch it out for a different steel that might not be quite as expensive to export to Italy to then build the knives and then re-import them, then it might be a little bit more compelling offer. But we'll see what happens in the future. All right, well, there's basically everything that I got to say about this Cold Steel Lucky One. Outside of the fact that wasn't that an Amy Grant song at one point? I think so. All right. Well, as always, I appreciate y'all for watching, and hope you have yourselves a wonderful rest of your day, yo. Subscribe.